Hello everybody, it's Arbiel again with Oak Tree Gun Club, and today we're going to be going over how to take apart, clean, and properly put back together the AR-15 series of rifle. This happens to be a Smith & Wesson M&P 15, and basically right now the bolt is to the rear. I'm going to show you how to do that, but as with any step here, we're going to first make sure that the weapon is unloaded. So first I'm going to go ahead and remove the magazine. Here in the state of California, we have the California bullet button device right here, which is going to require me to use a pointy object. They call it the bullet button because it requires a tip of a bullet on the range. Being that we are cleaning here, we don't have any ammunition in the vicinity, we're going to go ahead and just use a cleaning rod, and pushing that button right there, it's going to release the magazine. Okay, so now we started with the bolt in the rear position. I'm going to show you how to get there if you didn't start that way. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is, right now we don't know if this weapon is unloaded or not, so we're going to need to go ahead and press down on the lower tab of the bolt release, and then with that still held down, we're going to go ahead and pull what's called the charging handle back. Now the charging handle, the left side at least needs to be pulled because that is the retaining clip latch that keeps the charging handle latched into the upper receiver. So pulling both sides like such with our fingers, we're going to push down on the bottom half of the bolt release and pull back on the weapon. Still maintaining that push down, a bolt release push down, then I'm going to let go and push the charging handle forward. And the bolt should be locked to the rear. Now we're going to check and do a visual inspection. I can see in there that there's nothing in there. And of course, if we can, we're going to do a physical inspection. So we have seen and physically inspected that there is nothing in this chamber. So we're going to go ahead and to basically start the cleaning process, we are going to have to push the bolt in the forward position. We can do that by pushing this button right here. This is the top end of the bolt release. If we push that, the bolt will fly forward. Okay, now this is the safety. Of course, we're going to make sure the weapon is still on safe and always on safe while we're cleaning it. So we're going to go ahead and punch out this rear pin. On most used AR-15s or anything that comes from the factory, generally you're going to be able to push that out with your finger. On the other side here, we're going to have this end. We're going to have to pull this out manually. We may have to use a sharp or pointy object to poke it through or lift up on this tab. A heavily worn AR-15 or an AR-15 with decent tolerances from the factory, you're going to be able to do that by hand. And we're going to go ahead, and this is called shotgunning the AR-15. But we're basically going to pop off the upper and lower. Now, a important thing to note here is that that retaining pin back here in the receiver, it should not come all the way out. It is meant to stay within the confines of the lower receiver. So don't try too hard to get that pin out. It's supposed to stay with the gun. Okay, so now I can basically do my basic field maintenance like this, but to take it apart further, we can go ahead and release the upper receiver from the lower receiver. And we can do that by basically the same situation on the front end. We can push this pin in as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that carefully to make sure I don't lose or drop the lower or upper. Okay, now that comes off, and I'm going to show you what we have. We basically have the lower receiver and the upper receiver. And that's what people refer to when they talk about an AR-15 lower, is they're talking about this unit right here. And in this case has a stock affix, it's ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and put this to the side for now, and we're going to move on to the upper receiver because we haven't taken out the bolt carrier yet. So basically, again, gripping especially the left side of the charging handle, we're going to pull the charging handle about halfway. We're not going to go all the way out. All right, so what we're then going to do, I'm going to bring out my mat to put the parts on. And basically, now that we've gone halfway, we are first going to pull the bolt carrier out of the weapon. Alright, and then we're basically going to have to apply downward pressure on the charging handle till it pops out of the charging handle track within the upper receiver. So it's about a little past halfway, and then the charging handle will come out. So basically, I was pulling the charging handle and then until it wanted to come free, and then I pulled it out of the upper receiver. And the reason for that is the wings on the side of this charging handle, they're basically milled to not come out unless they hit that certain relief area of the track. So basically now we have an AR-15 upper receiver, we have our charging handle, and then we have our completed bolt carrier unit. Okay, so this of course can come apart further. The first thing we're going to do is called the cotter pin, and basically we're going to take a pointy object, or sometimes we can free it with just the fingernail, and we can get that free. In this case, I'm going to use the tip of a knife to pull that out. You want to make sure you don't lose it. And the cotter pin is going to go ahead and it's going to come out just like such. The next part that we got to free or take care of is going to be the firing pin itself, which we can just give it a nice little tap. And on a rifle that has some oil or whatnot in it, the firing pin should come free. On this particular rifle, of course, like all the other videos, this is a range gun, so it has seen a little bit of use, and you can see that already how dirty this is. And part of that is, a huge part of that is because of the direct impingement gas system on this weapon, which we'll get into later. Okay, so basically I've released the cotter pin from the right side pulling out to the left side of the bolt carrier, just like such. And then I let the firing pin drop free and come out of the channel. Now, one of the last couple steps here is I have this cam, this firing pin cam, and the bolt, and I have to tilt this, I have to turn this basically perpendicular to the length of the bolt carrier. I'm going to give it a nice little tap, and then that cam should come free of the bolt carrier out of that channel. Okay, so we're going to set that to the side, and now I'm just going to pull out the bolt face group out of the bolt carrier itself. Okay, so now this is as far as we generally are going to take this bolt carrier group, at least for now. And the parts I'm going to have are my bolt carrier, which you can see there. I'm going to have my bolt face, my bolt head group here. I'm going to have my firing pin, bolt cam right here. I'm also going to have my firing pin and my cotter pin that keeps the firing pin in. Okay, so that's basically the parts that we're going to have. In total, we have all of our bolt parts that I just talked about. We're going to have our charging handle, our upper receiver, and we're also going to have our lower receiver. So basically, it doesn't, as I always say in my videos here, it doesn't really matter where we start. The only thing that matters is we're keeping track of what we've cleaned and what we have not cleaned. So basically, I'm just going to start with the bolt carrier since it's totally out and open and the parts are loose. I want to get that back together so I don't drop or lose anything. And basically, I have a set of AR15 brushes here. The white brush is your basic hard intensity brush. Then they step it up further with the blue brush. It's a little bit harder, a little more convincing. And then the next one it's a wire brush, so it's going to be the hardest. And depending on what kind of corrosion I have caked up or what kind of carbon I have on the weapon, I'm going to have to use different tools. Now, we were talking about the direct impingement gas system. Okay, now that is the particular gas system utilized on this rifle. Okay, and now that's basically going to lead to the reason why we have so much carbon caked into these receiver parts. Alright, the direct impingement gas system on this weapon basically allows for all the heat and the carbon and the gases to basically flow directly into the receiver of the firearm. Okay, now it's been that way since the early M16 days of the Vietnam era, and it hasn't changed. It is still U.S. military issue. It is the standard for law enforcement military organizations all over the world. And there are piston systems that you can get that will basically redirect the flow of gas basically from the receiver and put it outside on top of the barrel. But that's for future videos. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this. I'm going to get back with you as soon as I'm done cleaning this out. Alright guys, so I'm back here and managed to get these parts clean, at least for the most part. Got all that built up carbon taken down. I had to be kind of abrasive with it, especially on the bolt itself. Carbon really does like to build up, especially right here, all around this portion of the bolt itself. Something I want to make note of is when you're putting this back together, you're going to want to make sure that your 3 gas rings here are not all lined up. There's a notch, there's a gap in each little gas ring itself. You want to make sure they are not lined up, and you want to spread those out because they tend to naturally line up over time. Okay, so now that we have that in mind and all of our parts are clean with the bolt carrier, we're going to want to go ahead and put the bolt carrier back together. And before we do that though, I do want to show you, you can, if you need to, every now and then I would take this apart. This is your actual extractor on the side of the bolt. And the way that we're going to take this apart is there's actually a pin right here on the bolt itself. We're going to push that pin out. And we're going to pull that pin through the other side, just like that. And then we're going to have a spring in our extractor. And basically we want to clean that channel, the bolt and the extractor. And we're going to want to do that probably every now and then just to make sure we don't have too much carbon building up in there. So anyways, putting that part back together, making sure we don't lose the parts here. And that's why we're putting the bolt carrier back right now, is we have all these parts out. We just want to put it back together since it's been taken care of. So I'm going to go ahead and use some M-Pro 7, got some LPX, just like you've seen in the other videos if you've seen those. And just going to throw some lubricant on the bolt. Now one thing about this rifle is, being a military design, it will not let you put this rifle together wrong. So the bolt cam pin is not going to fit right, basically, if you're not putting this in the right way. So we're going to line up our channel here, and you can see in this hole right here, it can go either way. Alright, this is the correct way, and we can tell because the extractor is on the right side, and that little pin, that little circle, the ejector, is on the left side. So either way, if we don't know what we're doing, we can still put it back together because it won't let me do it wrong. So basically we're going to put it just like that, and then we're going to have to swing or tilt that cam perpendicular to the actual bolt carrier itself. And then we're going to push the bolt forward in the forward position. Then what we're going to do is we're going to insert our firing pin, and basically we're going to hold the bolt down. And as we hold the bolt down, we're going to insert our firing pin from underneath, and we're just going to let it drop in, and we're going to push it all the way down if it needs help to get along. Okay, so now that the firing pin has been properly dropped all the way into the bolt carrier, the next thing I'm going to do is insert the cotter pin to basically secure it being stuck in there. So we have our cotter pin in, and the bolt is now back together. Now we can take this whole unit and we can actually put this to the side. Now we're going to concentrate on the upper receiver. Okay, and the charging handle, before I get to that, I did clean this out a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of carbon, possibly dust that's going to build up, but this is not too big a deal to clean. It may require a Q-tip or something in this channel to clean it out, but generally that's a pretty easy part. So we're also going to set that to the side and move on to our upper receiver. Now of course we got optics on this weapon. If you have iron sights, a scope, or any other form of optics, you're going to want to leave it on and not mess with it, because every time we remove those optics from the receiver rail, we're going to have to re-zero the optics. So of course we're going to leave our optics unmessed with. And we're going to go ahead and move towards the channel, and in there you can see that silver tube on the bottom here, the channel. That's what actually directs the gas flow from the barrel to the bolt carrier. So I'm going to go ahead and just spray this thing with M-Pro 7 cleaner or whatever solvent you're using. And it's going to have to get some cleaning in there. I'm just going to take my brush and I'm just going to clean this out. And again, that's kind of going back to the direct impingement gas system. The advantage of a direct impingement gas system is the fact that you don't have all this mass of metal and momentum flying back and forth over the front end or the top end of the barrel, like for example you would have on an AKM, AK-47 variant, where you have a giant metal piston with a reciprocating large handled bolt flying back and forth on the weapon. That's going to produce an inherently less accurate weapon, and it's going to put more wear and tear because there's more mass flying back and forth, as a general rule of thumb. And that was kind of the idea behind Eugene Stoner's direct impingement usage within the M16 AR platform. Is that's kind of your payoff. The advantage is you have the gases being piped in directly to the bolt, so there is no piston, there is no middleman, you could say. The downside is though, you have all these gases, all this heat, all this carbon getting piped directly into your receiver, which over time is going to start to build up. It doesn't necessarily, with great ammo, with good quality, even decent quality ammo, it's not necessarily going to make a weapon that is less reliable. It's not true. But what it is going to do is it's going to build up quite a bit of carbon, and it's eventually going to start to very quickly evaporate and blow out all the oil or all the lubrication that you put in that weapon. So it's kind of the trade-off with direct impingement system. As I was talking about earlier, they do offer piston-driven systems. The only downside with that is that they have not been officially adopted by the military or law enforcement organizations. So any piston system is proprietary for that company. For example, if you get a Stag Model 8 or a SIG 516 or an LMT CQB 16, any of those, they're all proprietary, and if you have any problems or you need spare parts, you have to get them or go to directly to that company, versus a direct impingement, which is the military standard. So it simply makes it easier to get parts for because everyone uses it. Alright, so moving on, we have an interesting challenge here with the AR15 series, and that is the star chamber. Within the actual barrel itself, there's many lugs in there where it actually reciprocates and mates with your bolt. So cleaning that, especially with an ejection port that doesn't allow for too much clearance, is going to be a little bit challenging. So right now I'm using this is a star chamber brush meant for directly the star chamber for the AR15, M16, M4 family of rifles. I'm using that on the end of a AR15 cleaning rod. And basically I'm going to put that in, and I'm just going to start brushing in and out, trying to clean what I can. And there's many different tools, many different items out there that you can use basically for cleaning AR-15's chambers. There's a direct market specifically made just around cleaning the chamber on an AR-15 or M16 just because of its unique challenges. Basically we're just going to get in there and we're just going to start scrubbing it out, start cleaning, and I'm going to go ahead and go off camera again just to initiate this process a little better. Alright guys, so I was able to clean out that star chamber. It took a little bit of time and it took a little bit of care. Definitely your best friend when cleaning AR-15 is going to be something like a Q-tip or a patch with a dental pick, gently getting in there to all the crevices and whatnot. It definitely, you know, it does require some patience for this process, and I will say just right up front that an AR-15 is definitely going to require a little bit of patience and time to clean properly. Now let's talk about the external areas of your upper receiver here we're going to look at. Definitely the muzzle area. We're going to spray that down with some solvent or cleaner, and we're basically just going to use our brush to get in there and clean this out. Of course we've got some gases, we've got some carbon, some heat. All that stuff is going to be building up around this on our standard flash hider here. So we're just going to get in there, we're basically just going to clean it out. It doesn't require too much care, but it does require just enough to get all that carbon out of there. And we're just going to want to clean any built up carbon that's basically building up around the gas block, which will happen after, you know, enough rounds. So we're going to spray some M-Pro 7 on there just to clean this out. Alright guys, now to clean the barrel, we're going to be using usually I use a bore snake, but in this case I'm actually going to be using a set of rods here. This is a military issue set of rods, and this has the handle which basically tucks into the side of the actual rod itself. And this is meant to be kind of a collapsible kit, military issue style. There's many different other solutions out there. Otis has a pretty nice kit as well. The reason why I don't use a bore snake with an AR is because it's about 223, 556 millimeter diameter, and that's about the size of the corded length of a bore snake, so it doesn't really fit as well, and you have to kind of channel it through. I'd rather just get a direct pass. So I basically sprayed the end of this with the M-Pro 7 gun cleaner. It's very important, guys. I'm going to be going from the breech end all the way to the muzzle end, and I want to do that basically as the bullet travels. So I'm going to insert that through the back of the receiver into the gun, into the upper. I'm basically going to pull that forward and then pull that to the rear. I'm going to take off anything that comes out, spray it again, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process. So I have a cleaning patch that's going to be about the right size for a 5.56. I'm going to go ahead and put that through the eye loop. And I'm going to go ahead and get my M-Pro 7 bore gel. Seems to be a good answer for this question. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some M-Pro 7 copper remover. I'm just going to throw that on this this wad just a little bit right there. Now we're going to go ahead and put that through, same process. And you can see that we have a little bit of work to do. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out. We're going to take this off, and I'm just going to get to work here. And you're going to see me a bit, basically off camera. I'm going to start cleaning this barrel a little better until the patches start coming out clean. Alright guys, that's just about as clean as we're going to get it. I went ahead and put a coat of oil throughout the barrel just to keep it protected. So now we're going to move on to the rest of the rifle. We're going to look at we're going to put the upper receiver aside now that the chamber, the external area, and the barrel have been handled. I'm going to go ahead and look at the lower. Now with the lower, there's a little bit of carbon that does build up basically within your trigger group area, your mechanism there. So with the hammer in the rear position, what I can also do is take a cleaning brush and I'm going to push down on the buffer spring detent right here. And there is some pressure, so be careful. And basically I'm going to free the buffer spring. And basically the buffer spring is going to come out of the gun just like such. Now sometimes some carbon does build up, so once in a while it is worth doing that. And basically you're going to use some brushes, some Q-tips, maybe a dental pick with a cloth or anything like that. You're basically just going to clean all the crevices within this, so I'm going to go ahead and go off camera and take care of that now. Alright guys, so I went ahead and cleaned out the lower, and we're going to go ahead and put that buffer back in the stock. So I'm just going to put a little bit of lubricant on the buffer itself, and we're going to go ahead and just start feeding that into the open stock right there. Now, it's very important, we got to do this with the hammer to the rear. So basically I just went ahead and put it in till the detent caught it. Now if we're going to discharge this hammer to clean the inside of the lower like I did, we're going to go ahead and make sure we coast that hammer forward like such. We definitely don't want to be in a position where we're hitting the hammer and letting it discharge against the frame right there, against the receiver. That's going to cause damage over time. So we're going to go ahead and coast that forward. We're going to clean whatever we need to on the inside, and then we're going to lock it back just like such. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and put that to the side for now. We're going to start putting together the rifle. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to bring back our upper, which we went ahead and cleaned out. And we're going to bring back our bolt carrier and our charging handle, like such. And I'm going to throw some lubrication on my bolt carrier, just all over it, and just kind of apply it with the fingers. Alright, we're going to set that aside. I'm going to put a little bit of lubrication on my charging handle, just like such. Okay, now the charging handle is actually going to be the first thing to go in. Alright, so I'm going to demonstrate here. We're going to basically insert the charging handle into the hole where the bolt carrier goes. In the meantime, we're basically pushing up on it until it clicks into its channel in the upper receiver. So basically I'm just going to do that until it clicks, and then I'm going to go about halfway. Okay, I'm going to put that down for a second. Now, with the bolt carrier, you're going to notice your bolt is going to either go to the rear position or the forward position. Okay, we're going to want to make sure for reassembly purposes that the bolt is in the forward position. It is only going to go together if the bolt is forward. Now basically this is called the gas key. This basically receives the gases from the gas tube. We're going to want to make sure that this empty channel on the charging handle is where our gas key is going to fit in, and again making sure the bolt is forward. So we're going to go ahead and place that in there like such. And then we can take the whole unit and push on the rear of that, and it should click in. Okay, so at this time we do have our bolt. Our bolt carrier is back in the receiver, and we're going to go ahead and put that down for a second. And now we're going to pick up our lower again. We're going to make sure that both detent pins are to the rear. We can basically slap on our upper and lower together, and then just start fitting the pins. I usually go for the front pin first, and now we're in a position where we started. And now I'm going to go ahead and snap in the rear pin. Okay, so at this time we have a rifle that is fully put back together. I'm going to go ahead and wipe off any excess oils that are on the outside of the weapon. Okay, now we're going to do our standard function check, as we always do, just to make sure the weapon still is functioning. So again, we're going to lock the weapon to the rear. So I'm going to pull the charging handle back, and as I'm doing that, I'm going to push down on the bottom of my bolt release. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and let go of the charging handle, but still keeping that held down. Okay, and then I'm going to manually push my charging handle forward and lock it. Alright, at that time, we can now see the bolt has been locked to the rear, and we're going to go ahead and check in there. And physical and visual inspection just to make sure it is unloaded, which it is. The weapon is unloaded. So we're going to go ahead and release the bolt. Basically the bolt release, this large button, we're going to push that in. Okay, and the bolt just returned the forward. Now we're going to flip the weapon on fire, and again pointing in a safe direction. We're going to flip it on fire and point it in the safe direction. I'm going to go ahead and discharge it, and when I discharge it, I'm going to keep the trigger held down. So we're going to go ahead and do that now, pointing in a safe direction. The trigger is still held down. I'm still holding on to the trigger. I'm going to go ahead and charge the weapon. Okay, with the trigger still being held down. Now when I let go of the trigger, you should hear a click. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and discharge it again. Okay, now basically what happened is we just mimicked and went through the battery of arms and the firing cycle of this weapon. So now we know that this weapon is fully functional again, and we would basically store it in that position discharged. And thanks for watching.